After years of neglect from both our parents, my sister chose Grandpa, not our dad, to walk her down the aisle. I'm 35 years old and I have 2 siblings. A sister who's 29 and a brother who's 23. My parents are deeply religious and conservative, and they always cared a lot about how they were perceived in society. Growing up, they really wanted a son, and they were incredibly disappointed when I was born, followed by my sister. When they found out I was going to be a girl, they seriously considered not having me, but due to their religious beliefs, they chose to carry on with the pregnancy. My grandmother has told me that when I was just 2, my mom sent me to live with her because she was struggling emotionally with my presence. Living with my grandparents was an incredible experience. My grandpa patiently taught me how to ride a bike, and I still remember the joy of riding it on my own for the first time. Those days spent riding together helped create a bond between us that has lasted for years. My grandma introduced me to gardening, teaching me how to nurture plants and watch flowers bloom. I grew to love having my own little patch of nature, and the lessons she gave me still guide me today. Through all of this, my parents didn't visit me once until I turned 7, and it was only then that people started questioning why I wasn't living with them. At that point, they brought me back. Despite my protests, I would have loved to stay with my grandparents where I felt safe and loved. After 3 years, my parents were thrilled to learn they were expecting again, but when they found out it was another girl, their disappointment returned. Oddly enough, they were a bit calmer about it than when I was on the way. Thankfully, my sister didn't have to endure what I did, and she stayed with them. Growing up, it became very clear that my parents treated me and my sister very differently. For example, I was expected to help my mother with nearly every household chore, and it felt like there was an endless list of tasks that I had to complete. My sister, on the other hand, was treated much more leniently. There was far less pressure on her, and she didn't have to deal with the same strict expectations I had. It was almost like they had learned from their earlier experience with me and decided to take a softer approach with her. Another glaring difference was how they handled our education. When I was in school, there was a lot of pressure on me to excel in every subject. My parents had incredibly high expectations, and if I didn't achieve top grades, I was met with disappointment. They signed me up for a ton of extracurricular activities, pushing me to be the best at everything. But when my sister started school, things were far more relaxed. While they still cared about her grades, the pressure wasn't nearly as intense. She was allowed to explore her interests at her own pace, and there weren't the same rigid expectations that I had faced. The most noticeable difference, though, was how our achievements were celebrated. Whenever I accomplished something significant, it was acknowledged with a simple nod or a brief mention. But when my sister achieved something, it was like the whole family threw a celebration as if it were a major milestone. These differences really confused me. I couldn't understand how my parents could raise us so differently. It was hard living in an environment where I constantly felt scrutinized, especially when I saw my sister getting a much more carefree upbringing. But I made a conscious effort not to resent her. Recognizing that she wasn't to blame for the way our parents raised us. Despite everything, I stayed committed to being supportive and a positive influence in her life. We've always managed to maintain a strong bond, and we're close to this day. Everything shifted when my brother was born 6 years later. My parents threw an extravagant celebration, excited that they finally had a son. From the moment he was born, it was clear that he was treated differently. He had expensive clothes, fancy toys, and a super cool room that was far nicer than what my sister and I ever had. They went all out for him, buying top-tier baby gear like high-end strollers and an expensive crib. But it wasn't just the stuff. Our brother got far more attention. My parents captured every little milestone on camera. But when it came to me and my sister, there was never this much excitement or attention. Even in everyday things, our parents were more involved with him. They never missed a doctor's appointment or any of his events. Meanwhile, for me and my sister, our grandparents played a much larger role in our lives. This pattern didn't end after infancy. As my brother grew, it became clear that he was exempt from many of the chores my sister and I had to do. Our parents were always making exceptions for him, excusing him from tasks that were an essential part of our daily routine. His birthdays and other special occasions were celebrated with grand parties and expensive gifts, while my sister and I often felt overlooked. To be honest, by the time he came along, I had grown accustomed to being treated differently, but this was the first time my sister had to deal with what I'd faced as a child. We started spending more time at our grandparents' house, where we'd play in the yard or listen to their stories by the fireplace. Our grandparents became our safe haven, and we shared our struggles, fears, and dreams with them. My grandmother would always reassure us that we weren't alone. When I was a teenager, my parents labeled me a rebel because of my differing political views. Every time I tried to explain myself, my mom would cry and tell me I was stressing her out. If I showed any signs of anger or sadness in front of her, she'd get upset and tell me that she couldn't stand to be around me. During those times, my mother would ignore me for hours whenever I expressed myself. As my sister got older, she began to assert her individuality, but also started struggling with her mental health for years. My mom refused to acknowledge that my sister needed treatment, insisting she was fine. But when my sister would have panic attacks or bouts of anxiety, my mom would tell her that she was burdening everyone. One night, things at home escalated to the point where my parents were relentlessly criticizing my sister and me, calling us disappointments and saying we should never have been born. It felt like their harsh words were suffocating us, and we just couldn't take it anymore. Overwhelmed by a deep sense of hurt and confusion, my sister and I made the decision to leave home. We packed our things and went straight to our grandparents' house. When our parents found out, they showed up demanding that we return. My grandmother didn't hold back. She scolded them for the way they treated us. My dad's response was cold and dismissive. He told her that he provided for us with food and shelter, so what more did we want? My usually calm grandpa snapped in a way I had never seen before, raising his voice for the first time. He angrily told my father that he should be ashamed of how he was treating his own children, and warned him that if he ever hurt us again, he'd call CPS on them. This scared our parents deeply, especially since our brother was still young. They feared losing custody of him too. My grandpa didn't stop there. He continued to defend us, insisting that we deserved better parents than them. I'll never forget him telling my mother that, despite being his daughter, he had never treated her like that, so how could she treat us that way? I watched as my mother's face flushed red with embarrassment. That night at our grandparents' place marked a pivotal moment in our lives. It was the first time someone stood up for us, and it made all the difference. After that, things at home began to shift. My parents, especially my dad, were shaken by the threat my grandpa had made, so they toned down the constant yelling and criticism, but our brother continued to receive extra attention and affection. For me and my sister, however, things improved slightly, and the atmosphere at home became less tense. When I turned 18, I was determined to go to college, but my parents were completely against it. This led to another huge argument. My mom told me that, as a girl, I should focus on getting married and having children. She said that no man would be interested in a woman with too much education. My dad joined in, mocking the idea of me pursuing higher education. It was incredibly difficult to hear my own parents discourage me from being independent, simply because of my gender. Despite their protests, I went straight to a 4-year university. I had been awarded a scholarship for the honors program, so my parents didn't have to pay a penny for my education. This only made them more upset, but I didn't care. I worked part-time while attending college, saving money as best I could. Living on my own was a game changer. It taught me the ropes of adulthood and gave me a taste of the real world. Balancing my studies, part-time work, and personal life wasn't easy, but it made me stronger and more self-reliant. During this time, my parents rarely checked in on me, and the distance between us grew. Eventually, I graduated and landed a full-time job. I had saved enough money from my part-time work to move into an apartment with roommates. My communication with my parents became less frequent, almost non-existent, and they seemed fine with the distance. There were times when life got tough, job struggles, relationship issues, and my first instinct was to reach out to family, but I always hesitated. I knew they wouldn't care. The thought of going back to that emotional roller coaster with them was too overwhelming. Eventually, I made the conscious decision not to involve them in my life at all. The only family member I stayed in constant contact with was my sister. When it was her turn to go to university, our parents threatened to kick her out if she pursued higher education while living under their roof, so I offered to take her in. I wanted to make sure she had the chance to follow her dreams without our parents standing in her way. She moved in with me and started attending a local community college. I worked hard to provide for both of us. It wasn't always easy, but I was determined to support her education and help her achieve her goals. During that time, our bond grew even stronger. I found peace knowing that, despite everything with our parents, I could create a supportive and nurturing environment for my sister. When our brother grew up, he didn't face the same struggles my sister and I had. Our parents were proud to send him off to college. They had even set up a college fund for him, ensuring he had the financial support to pursue higher education. It was clear that he had opportunities and privileges we never had. While I was happy for him, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness at the stark contrast in how we were treated. Despite everything, my sister and I remained committed to supporting one another, determined to rise above the challenges of our upbringing. Through all the ups and downs, our grandparents were a constant source of love and support. They stayed in touch with us, visiting whenever they could. A few years ago, our beloved grandmother passed away, and my sister and I rushed home to be there for our grandfather. It was during this time that I saw our parents for the first time in years. They barely acknowledged me with a simple nod, and their coldness stung deeply. At that moment, I wanted to cry. I was already feeling vulnerable, and their lack of warmth made everything worse. I don't care about breaking tradition, Mom. I want Grandpa to be a part of this special moment. He's been there for us when you both forgot that you had daughters. You can attend the wedding, but as a guest, just like any other relative, Dad, you can't just sideline us like this." Hearing these words from my sister, I couldn't hold my laughter anymore. I burst into laughter, and the room went silent, everyone taken aback by my reaction. I turned to look my dad square in the eyes and said, "You and Mom forgot how to be parents to us, treating us like garbage all those years. You have no right to demand my sister listen to you now." The truth hit hard, and our parents, angry and embarrassed, started yelling at both of us. They insisted we were going to ruin their reputation, but honestly, we didn't care. My sister held her ground, telling them that they couldn't suddenly play the role of parents when they had neglected us for so long. I added that their actions had consequences and that they couldn't rewrite the past. She made it clear that our parents' role at the wedding would be limited. Just like any other guest, they were welcome to attend, but their involvement would be minimal. The meeting ended on a sour note, with my sister resolute in her decision as we left. I felt a mixture of admiration for her courage and disappointment in our parents' inability to grasp the impact of their past actions. Since then, we've been hounded by both our parents and other relatives, who have called us selfish and cruel for not letting our dad walk my sister down the aisle. They accuse us of tearing the family apart, but I couldn't help but stand by my sister's decision. We had the right to take control of the narrative for our own lives, and no one would take that away from us. Update 1. A few hours have passed since I posted the story, and the support has been overwhelming. For everyone asking about our grandpa, my sister has informed him about the engagement, and he warmly congratulated her. He doesn't know about my sister's idea to have him walk her down the aisle just yet, and we want to be there when we share the news with him. We plan to visit him this weekend to see his reaction in person. As for our parents, they've continued to bombard us with angry messages. Dad even reached out to John on Facebook, sending him a long message about how he should talk sense into my sister, stating that, as the man in the relationship, he should stop her from breaking tradition. He went on to say my sister had no right to ask Grandpa to walk her down the aisle, insisting that it's the father's role. He then threatened John, saying that if he allowed my sister to go through with it, neither he nor Mom would attend the wedding. John's response was calm and clear. "My fiancée will do whatever she wants, and I stand by her. It's your choice whether or not to attend the wedding." The strength and clarity of John's reply must have shocked Dad, who likely expected a more submissive response. I can't help but smile, imagining the look on his face when he read it. Update 2. This weekend, my sister and I drove down to Grandpa's place, practically buzzing with excitement to share the news. My sister sat down with him and said, "I have something important to tell you." Grandpa, always curious and kind, looked at us, his eyes filled with warmth. My sister took a deep breath and said, "I want you to walk me down the aisle on my big day. You've always been there for us, and I can't imagine anyone else doing it." Grandpa's eyes welled up with tears as he pulled my sister into a tight hug, his voice choking with emotion. "I'm so honored," he said. Watching the scene unfold, my own eyes filled with tears, and we shared a group hug. Grandpa kept thanking my sister, saying how much it meant to him that she'd asked him. We reassured him that it was the least we could do to show our gratitude for all the love and support he had given us over the years. We then explained how we'd broken the news to our parents and how they had reacted. We were concerned that they might take their anger out on Grandpa, but he chuckled, reassuring us that he could handle Mom and that nothing would stop him from walking my sister down the aisle. My sister sighed in relief, and we spent the rest of the evening with Grandpa, helping him with whatever he needed. As my sister's wedding day approached, we found ourselves knee-deep in the planning process, making sure every detail reflected her personality. From choosing the perfect theme to finalizing her wedding dress and carefully arranging the seating for guests, every moment was a labor of love. I couldn't wait to see my beautiful sister say "I do" to the love of her life. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I apologize for the delay. Life has been busy, but now I'm ready to share how the wedding turned out. The big day finally arrived, and it was everything my sister had dreamed of, and more. The venue was breathtaking, just as we had envisioned. The guests filled the seats, and a sense of joy and excitement filled the air. However, there was a noticeable absence at the ceremony. Our parents, after we made the decision to limit their role in the wedding, they chose not to attend. It was a bittersweet realization. Knowing that they had missed such a significant moment in my sister's life, we respected their choice, but the feeling of their absence lingered. The ceremony itself was nothing short of magical. My sister, glowing in her wedding dress, stood proudly with Grandpa by her side. The love and pride in his eyes were unmistakable as they walked down the aisle together. Looking at them, I knew we had made the right decision. Having Grandpa play such a pivotal role had filled my sister with joy, and that joy was evident in every step she took. The atmosphere was full of warmth, laughter, and shared happiness. When my sister and John exchanged vows, promising each other a lifetime of love and companionship, it felt like everything had come full circle. The celebration continued into the night, with dancing, laughter, and heartfelt toasts that left us all with memories to cherish. Since the wedding, life has been smoother. My sister and I made the conscious decision to block our parents, choosing not to allow their negativity and drama into our lives anymore. Instead, we focus on building a positive life surrounded by people who genuinely care about us. We continue to visit our grandpa regularly, as he remains a constant source of love and support in our lives. I hope this is my last update, as we've found peace and a new direction forward.